I'm Dr. Neil H. Payne.
And I'm Kirk Lyons, and this is All Things Confederate. Neil, I understand that you just got back from the Stephen D. Lee Institute in Savannah. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was a really good event that was held in the beautiful city of Savannah, Georgia. The Stephen D. Lee Institute is a function or a organization in the SCV that puts on scholarly conferences about different topics. This year it was talking about the cost of Lincoln's War. So we had several really good talks that went into not only the cost to the United States and men lost and lives lost, but also economic damage to the South mainly, and financial damage. But one of the primary costs of the war was the damage to the Constitution, the loss of liberty, the loss of our rights under the old Constitution. We really live under a different Constitution since Appomattox. We don't live under the same Constitution, although it looks like the same document. If you look it up in the dictionary or the encyclopedia, it looks just like the one that they got under glass in Washington, but it's not the same one because they have changed the very nature of the government from a dispersed and decentralized government where the states had a say to a centralized unitary European-style state, and that really is why we have the problems that we see in this country. They can all be all of these ills, all the roads lead back to Appomattox as far as this country goes.
Right, in Reconstruction Acts, which added amendments to the Constitution, the 13th Amendment, 14th, 15th amendments that forever changed the construct of the American federal system, and because the 14th Amendment puts all state bills of rights under essentially a federal aegis, so that if your rights are violated, you can always appeal to Big Brother government to interpret the Bill of Rights of that state, for you. It is essentially grabbed all of these rights, these liberties, and put them in the hand of the government, of the federal government.
That's one of the things they pointed out. Besides the fact that it was passed illegally, the states that ratified it were not states at the time, but were federal departments under martial law. And so they can't be said to have been passed by representative governments of the people of those states. And it turned the whole system on its head. The states created the federal government. They were the ones that they created this agent of theirs, right, the federal government, and the states were to tell their agent what to do. And now we have the agent dictating to the states.
The agent now thinks it's the author and the owner and the title holder.
Absolutely.
And they were not even part of the contract. It was a contract of the people through the states, creating a limited government, delegating certain prerogatives, rights, and privileges to the federal government so that it could effectively act as the agent for the states.
Exactly. Now, the first night there, they had a really nice reception by the host SCV chapter in Savannah. And I think the camp commander gave a very interesting talk about whether the United States was guilty of war crimes during the South. And he was able to show through the war records of the Yankees themselves, the congressional record, that they knew that they were violating the international law that existed at the time,
right?
And their own records convict them. I hope that we can get a link to that up on our website, because it's well worth going through and seeing what they said about killing women and children, civilians, and that was a war aim of these people.
And that's not just something that should be debated historically. It has a very practical application today, because the same type of usurpation of liberty and essentially arrogating to the government the right to make war when and will it will is a very current theme, And so, and these are precedents that go right back to the war between the states. I mean, at this time, you had people asked that know, why was the Vatican so sympathetic to the South? I mean, if any, and it was considered a nation state at the time, Vatican City, headed by the Pope, the head of the Roman Catholic Church. Why did he recognize the Confederacy? It was because the war being waged against the South was not a just war. And Catholic doctrine for centuries had defined what was a just war. And what the North was doing to the South was not just.
And all civilized European countries, because of the horrors of the 30 Years' War, they developed codes of war. They said, we cannot wage war like this against civilians and depopulate whole swaths of the countryside. And so the European countries had agreed to certain ways of conducting war, and one of them was not to wage war on defenseless towns and women and children. But we do that today. This government does that today in our name. And so these issues come back, and they're very current. The other thing I wanted to mention was a talk by, I believe it was Donnie Kennedy, and he was, his basic talk was promoting an idea that we needed to promote an amendment to the Constitution to recognize the right of secession and nullification. And of course, those are hot button issues, but they're very current issues. We hear a lot about nullification these days. In fact, there are several states in this country who have passed nullification laws. Now, the federal government isn't calling them that, but that's essentially what they are, where they're nullifying what the government is doing. There's going to be a push and a shove on this issue. The federal government cannot allow themselves to be usurped.
Of course. And they have the National Defense Authorization Act, so that if you propose a secession amendment, they can say that that's in substantial support of terroristic activity, and you get to go to Gitmo for the rest of your life with no probable cause. And then they will, if they pass the Expatriation Act, they'll take your citizenship away. So
and they can do anything they want.
They can do anything they want. They're the government.
That's right, and they're here to help you. But, and a lot of people would object, oh my goodness, let's not do another petition. What are we wasting our time, campaigning on issues like nullification of secession? That stuff is dead, and that question was settled at Appomattox.
And it was only to support slavery anyway.
Yeah, that's right. But it certainly wasn't settled, because we have these same issues coming up again. Jefferson Davis said that they would reassert themselves, and they have, because they weren't settled properly at Appomattox. He wasn't proposing this as something that would save the Union or save our country. His main reason to propose a nullification amendment was to raise consciousness of Southern people, to get this idea out there and on the table as a teaching tool, as a way to get people understanding that the problem with not having nullification, with the government saying that nullification is wrong, is it makes the federal government the final arbiter of its own power. And that is a prescription for tyranny. When the federal government gets to say, whether it has or has not overstepped its own power, it's never going to admit that. It's going to take more power and more power, just like in the National Defense Authorization Act, until it has all the power, and we're all in Gitmo. So I think it's a good idea. I think we really need to work on capturing the hearts and minds of our own Southern people and other Americans who are sympathetic to the cause of the South. But we need to get more people involved in understanding what's actually going on.
And the first thing you can do towards that is to become a member of the Southern Legal Resource Center. For $35 a year, we are the best bargain going for defensive liberty. And that's what the SLRC is all about. It's about liberty for the Confederate community and all Americans. And if we can do anything to push the envelope forward on your rights and your liberties and that of your children and your future, I think you'll find that $35 is well spent. So join today, the Southern Legal Resource Center, and we'll have an address and contact information, and make the most charitable donation you can for the fight for your liberty.
Thank you.